You know the image? These fierce, powerful warrior women, maybe on winged horses,
Yeah.
Valkyries. They're, like, everywhere in pop culture now.
Oh, absolutely. But the actual mythology behind them, it's way more complex and honestly kind of more surprising than what you usually see. It's a story that really changes over time.
And that's exactly what we're getting into today.
Hmm.
We've got sources here, texts, and historical info on the Valkyries. And our mission really is to cut through maybe the modern hype and unpack what's really going on with these fascinating figures. Okay, let's dig in.
Right. Let's start with the name itself, Valkyrie. It comes straight from Old Norse, the word Valkyria.
And the name tells you a lot right there, doesn't it? If you break it down. Valor, that's those who fall on the battlefield.
The slain. And Kyosa means to choose.
So those who choose the fallen.
Exactly. It's not just some cool title. That's their core function, baked right into the name. And it links them immediately to Odin, who is, very much known as the god of death.
Yeah, and that literal meaning.
Yeah.
It sort of hints at their earliest image,
Yeah.
which sounds like it was much, much darker than the shiny warrior maiden thing we might think of now.
Oh, definitely. Forget the winged ladies for a second. Early on, sources suggest Germanic tribes saw them less like heroic guides and more like, grim figures, almost demonic, tied directly to death and the gore of the battlefield.
So their job was just stark.
Yeah.
Picking up bloody corpses and spirits from the battlefield, taking them to the afterlife. Sounds less glorious, more grim reaper-ish.
It was pretty grim, yeah. This gloomier picture seems to have been the main one for quite a while, probably into the late migration period, maybe around the 5th century, just tied to death, basically.
Okay, so what changed? How did we get from these, dark death collectors to the brighter Valhalla-associated warrior figures?
Well, that big shift seems directly linked to how the whole idea of Valhalla developed as a place. As Valhalla became this, glorious hall for the chosen warriors, the Valkyries got tied into that. And as their destination got, let's say, friendlier, their image started to soften up too.
So they became the welcoming committee for the afterlife VIPs.
Sort of, yeah. By the 10th century, seems like the image of Valhalla was pretty set, and their positive transformation was mostly done. But, and this is important, even though they seem friendlier, the sources say they kept these bloody elements.
Makes sense. Still connected to battlefields and death.
Exactly. Their main job was still choosing who died, who was worthy, and bringing them specifically to Valhalla now. Odin's chosen.
That selection part sounds crucial. Deciding who gets into the warrior heaven.
Absolutely. It determined your entire afterlife if you were a warrior.
Okay, so they pick the Einherjar, the chosen warriors, bring them to Valhalla. What happens then? Do they just, drop them at the door?
No, not at all. Once inside Valhalla, their role changes, but they're still serving Odin and these Einherjar. They actually become the servers in the Great Hall.
Serving them.
Yeah, bringing them mead, bringing meat. They're part of that whole eternal cycle in Valhalla. Feasting, fighting, celebrating, repeat.
And the Poetic Edda, Grimnizel, right? It actually lists some of their names, 13 of them.
That's right, yeah. The list has names like Hrist, Mist, Skögul, Skögul, Heluk, Herfutur, Hild, Trut, Gul, Gerul, Rengrit, Rathgrit, and Reglanlight. Quite a mouthful.
And those names are pretty intense, aren't they? Sources say a lot of them mean things related to battle or legal stuff or their jobs. Things like the Shaker, Battle, Shackles of the Army, Shield Destroyer, even Daughter of the Gods.
Yeah, they really tell you something about their nature, Powerful figures tied to the chaos and judgment of war. These names were probably coined by the poets, the skalds, to capture their essence, and sometimes they're just called Odin's girls.
Right, emphasizing they're his crew. Doing his bidding.
Exactly, his retinue.
But 13, that wasn't necessarily the total number, was it?
No, definitely not. Other Valkyries pop up in other stories, and the feeling was probably that, their number wasn't fixed. Maybe it was even unlimited, considering how many battles there were.
Okay, so we've got choosing the dead after battle, serving in Valhalla. But you mentioned they retained power. They could do more than just clean up. Right, they could actually get involved during the fighting.
Yes, and this is where they get even more formidable. The sources, especially heroic sagas, show they could intervene directly in battles, but usually at Odin's command. Sometimes they're seen watching over specific heroes, maybe protecting them.
So supernatural bodyguards or maybe battle spirits influencing things?
Kind of, yeah. They definitely kept that fearsome edge. One of the most striking images is from Njál's saga. Their Valkyries aren't just picking souls, they're actively deciding the fate of whole armies.
Oh, right. that really gruesome scene, weaving destiny on a loom, but the loom is made of, like, weapons and intestines and severed heads. Ugh.
It's incredibly graphic, and it really drives home those bloody elements we talked about. Their power wasn't just passive collection. It was active, fate-determining power on the battlefield itself.
Wow.
And they weren't bound by normal rules either, riding across water through the air. They were truly supernatural.
But then there's this whole other side to them in different stories, like the heroic legends, where they seem softer, more human almost.
Yeah, it's a really interesting contrast. In some of these sagas, they're less like these abstract forces of fate or Odin's agents, and are more like, well, powerful, beautiful warrior women who actually have personal interactions with mortals, even falling in love.
Brunhild is probably the one most people think of, maybe because of Wagner's operas. Though you said these sources suggest Wagner took some liberties.
He definitely did, yeah. But the basic idea of a Valkyrie falling for a mortal hero that is in the older myth, and maybe an even more amazing example, is the story of Svava.
Svava.
What's really interesting is that Svava is sometimes described as the daughter of a human king, so the lines are already blurring there.
And her story with the hero Helgi, it spans multiple lifetimes, right? Like 3. That shows some serious connection.
It really does.
Yeah.
So first, Svava protects Helgi or Vatsan in battle. They fall in love, but eventually her protection fails, maybe a curse or something, and he dies. But their bond is so strong.
They get reborn.
Exactly. Svava comes back as the Valkyrie Sigrun. Helgi is reborn too. They find each other again, fall in love again. But that love also ends tragically when Helgi dies, this time seemingly because Odin wills it and Sigrun can't stop it. She actually dies of grief on his grave mound.
Wow. But does it end there?
No. They're reborn a third time as Kára and Helgi hiding Jaskadi. It's this incredible theme of love transcending death. Kára, like the others before her, has to use her powers to try and keep him safe. We don't actually know how that third story ends, sadly, because the Kára songs are lost.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
But the fact that Svava, in her first life, even had kids with Helgi, that really shows how human they could become in these particular tales.
Absolutely. It highlights this deep humanization. So you have this stark contrast, right? The Valkyries of the, let's call it the core belief system. Odin's servants, choosers of the slain, guides to Valhalla. And then you have these Valkyries from the heroic legends, often more romanticized, complex heroines, maybe more for entertainment, telling these epic love stories.
2 very different vibes almost.
Definitely serving different narrative purposes.
So we have the texts, the sagas. Is there any, like, physical evidence, pictures or anything showing how people imagined them?
Yeah, we actually have some cool visual stuff. There's the Gengwide picture stone. It's from Sweden, 11th century. It actually shows a scene in Valhalla, and you can see figures interpreted as Valkyries bringing Odin a drinking horn full of mead, just like the text described.
Oh, okay.
And there are also these small silver and bronze figures, a bit earlier, maybe 9th century, showing similar scenes, like a woman offering a horn.
Interesting. And what about, did people actually, like, worship them or make offerings?
Well, there are hints, yeah. It's suggested. Especially later on in the late Viking Age, Valkyries are sometimes called dísir.
Dísir, what's that?
Dísir was a term for female nature spirits, or sort of lesser goddesses. And these dísir did receive sacrifices. People revered them, respected them.
So calling Valkyries dísir might mean people saw them in a similar light, as beings you could perhaps offer something to or show reverence towards.
It strongly suggests they might have been seen that way, yeah. As these powerful, perhaps slightly lower-tier goddesses worthy of respect and maybe even offerings.
Okay.
And it's also interesting, the title Valkyrie wasn't just mythological. It was sometimes used as like an honorary title for actual human female warriors who were known for being incredibly brave and skilled, a term of great respect.
Wow, that really connects the myth back to real life, doesn't it? Praising real women by comparing them to these powerful figures.
It really does. And it kind of underlines that no matter how their image changed, dark demons, shining servers, romantic heroines, they were always seen as powerful warriors, figures tied to fate. And they were treated with, real respect and honor in the culture.
So we've gone on quite a journey here. From these really quite chilling choosers of the slain, working for the god of death, through this transformation into the radiant servers in Valhalla's hall.
Right.
And then even becoming these captivating romantic heroines in later stories. It's amazing how much the idea shifted and adapted.
It really shows you that mythology isn't just some static old story, is it? It breathes, it evolves with the people telling it, reflecting what they believe, what they value, maybe even what stories they just enjoy hearing.
In understanding all those layers, you get a much richer, much more nuanced picture than just, the warrior woman with the winged helmet you see everywhere now. It has so
Yeah,
much depth.
definitely. You appreciate how significant these figures really were over centuries.
And it makes you wonder, thinking about that whole evolution, from grim reapers to loving wives and mothers practically. With jobs ranging from picking the dead and weaving fate to serving drinks and protecting heroes. What does that incredible journey of the Valkyrie image actually tell us about the changing beliefs, the desires, maybe even the anxieties of the Germanic cultures themselves over all that time?